Hi, everyone. This is Carrie, and I am back for day 6 of the West trial, offering you guys updates on what happened since we have audio only on this trial. Um, Jacqueline West's mother, Maria Martinez, came back up on the stand, and she is so frustrating. I don't know if this woman is committing perjury or what. What's really frustrates me is she says she doesn't understand, but I just feel like she understands. I feel like she understands. Um, and then part of it is trying to pull things out of her. It's taking forever to get any answers. So they watched a video of body cam footage of where she was interviewed. And then they played a video of her being interviewed again. And I think that was just from listening to it. I don't think know if that was in the interview room. I think that might have been like, I think that one was in the interview room. The first one was at her home. She had said she went to their Cal City home with her friend one day, but she didn't remember if she went into the house. And then, and trust me, as I talk this through, you'll hear that some of this stuff is so conflicting. It doesn't make any sense. After Trezell and Jacqueline moved to Cal City, did she ever see Orrin and Orson? And she says, and then you couldn't even hear the answers. But then she comes back and says all the children were there, but she wasn't paying attention. She said she came in one day. They sat in the dining room. Jacqueline was the only one in there with her. They had coffee. The kids were in the other room. She saw the backs of the little ones. They kept calling them the babies. And when she was leaving to say goodbye, she just yelled bye and they all said goodbye to her. So she didn't get, according to what the translation was, she never really saw their faces. She said that was the only visit that she went and saw Jay, and the kids there was a she said in one of the videos, she did say that, Jacqueline came to visit her, and it was a real quick visit, and she asked where the kids were, and she said they were at their grandmother's. What I found peculiar about that was that she said the police did ask if Jacqueline knew the kids were with her grandmother, or is that what Trezell had told her? And Maria said that that is what Trezell had told Jacqueline. So they were trying to lean towards, it seemed like the prosecution was trying to lean towards that mommy wasn't very happy with Jacqueline. But then when the defense got up there and started talking to her, it seemed like they were trying to be more, they were breaking down that translation barrier somewhat. Because, oh, by the way, she speaks no English. This is the problem. I guess I should have said that from the start, right? So they have a translator up there. And she says she doesn't understand. But then the defense comes back and asks her a question, and then she answers it differently than what she answered to the prosecution. She said that another time she had went over to Cal City area, Jacqueline and Trezell had come over to that house as well, but the children weren't with them. And they were loading lumber in the van. This was on October 10th, and she was telling this to the prosecution. After she discovered the kids were missing, she called Jacqueline. She found out the kids were missing through FBI, by the way. And she called Jacqueline and she went to see them in Cal City. I think it was the next day. When she was there, she said there was no police there. She said she was not able to clarify her answers during interviews. Okay, so I guess this was when it wasn't Torres stalling, it was another lady from the defense that had asked the questions. Her name was Rodriguez. She said Martinez said she was not able to clarify her answers during interviews. The Bakersfield Police Department arrived and translated because apparently the FBI was using a cell phone to translate. And the defense asked her if she confirmed if she doesn't know how to pronounce names because yesterday she said she didn't even know the kids' names. Today she confirmed that she knew their original names. She doesn't know their new names, or she doesn't understand how to pronounce their new names. So she just says she doesn't know them. That's why she answered that way. Then she turned around and said they weren't loading lumber van on October 10th. They were loading shelves. And all of the children's car seats were in the van at that time, thus the shelves did not fit. And the one thing that was frustrating about trying to listen to this was the translator. was not speaking into the microphone every time. And it's so apparent that this judge just does not care if we, the public, can hear this trial. All right, so I'm going to just break down some stuff here. Eric Smith, who is the DA, had asked her if, after the boys were reported missing, if she got the other sons to watch, and she called the FBI and let them know they were staying with her. After the West moved to Cal City, Martinez visited them 2 times. Now she's saying she visited them 2 times and asked if she focused in or saw Orrin and Orson, and Martinez says she always saw them together in the living room. The children didn't leave the room. They were playing games. Martinez says she didn't stop and speak to each grandchild. She didn't look at their faces. When Martinez left the dining room, she said goodbye, and they shouted goodbye. She said she didn't focus on the children at all. Which, as a grandmother, do you guys not find that awkward or weird? All right, so Fatima Rodriguez is the woman on the defense that's asking these questions. Martinez said she was repeatedly interviewed by law enforcement and said she was told she'd be charged with a crime if she lied. They pointed on that twice. They came back and said, why did they say they kept bringing in CPS? They said CPS came to her home once and asked to check for bruising or marks on her own adopted children because Trezell and Jacqueline had been over to their house. So defense kept trying to make it sound like the department was threatening her about committing crimes if she was trying to cover for Jacqueline and Trezell. They probably did tell her that, but it was just the way that it was coming off. It's as if I don't know. Take it for what it's worth. They did tell her. I mean, they did say you realize that if you're not telling the truth, you could be committing a crime. I don't know if that made her more nervous. I guess defense was trying to say they were taking advantage of the fact that she didn't know English and the translation was a barrier there. So yesterday she had said that she didn't even know that Trezell and Jacqueline had moved to Cal City until after they moved there. Today she said that they gave her their refrigerator from the apartment complex that they lived at near her before they moved. I think this was the prosecution. They asked her if she had ever cooked food for Jacqueline and Trezell, and she said she would invite them over for dinner and they would come over on holidays only. She said, he asked if she had ever taught Trezell how to cook. She said no. She was asked if his favorite food was tamales, and she said he likes everything in the courtroom. Everybody laughed in the courtroom. Around the pandemic, she hardly ever saw Jacqueline. She didn't go to their home because she didn't want to be around Trezell. Now, this was the question that was asked to her. So she didn't say that specifically. They were asking her, so you didn't want to go to the home because you didn't want to be around Trezell. She said, no, he didn't bother me. I just didn't like to visit. And then they said, well, around this time, you also didn't know the names of Orrin and Orson. And then they objected. They approached the bench. And that was that of that topic. She testified that some officers came to her home in December and that they visited several times, but she did not recall the exact date. They looked at the videos of her interviews and clarified she recognized herself in each video. They played a video interview of Maria. This is PD body cam footage. And then she said when Jacqueline would come visit her, she would come alone. And then in clip 2, Maria's been interviewed at the police department, and she said she doesn't know their names because they changed their names, and the new names are difficult for her to pronounce. That's where she said that. Clip 3, she said she doesn't like going to Jacqueline's home when Trezell is home because she cannot talk to him. She feels uncomfortable when they asked her to clarify. So I think what she means by that is she can't talk to him because he doesn't speak Spanish. So when she was living near them, her main communication was only with Jacqueline. There was a video of Jacqueline being interviewed by the Bakersfield Police Department, and Officer John Ryan said he told her, now is your time to be honest with us. She told him, I'm not hiding anything. I'm jumping ahead, so let me go back. Sorry about that. Now, the DA Smith asked if Martinez ever FaceTime with Jacqueline. And he asked if she ever saw the kids during those calls. Martinez said the kids were always playing when would call. Martinez testified yesterday she did not see the kids during the calls. So see, there's another conflict. After she had said that about Trezell, that was it. I think they were struggling with her so much they felt like, why are we entertaining this anymore? We can't with this witness. I swear, I would have given up on her. Okay, so now they've called Latoya Spry Sanders to the stand. She's said that she has fostered children. She began doing so in 2008, and the agency she went through was Safe Haven. So they're going through all the things in regards to becoming a foster parent and then going into adoption. There's a home inspection and interview training. Their training required every year to stay licensed. She currently has 2 foster children and 4 biological children. Safe Haven made contact with her once a week and a county social worker once a month when fostering a child. After adoption, there are no checks in on a regular basis. Smith showed Sanders photos of Orrin and Orson. She said she recognized them. I fostered them, she said, and she became emotional. She fostered Orrin beginning December of 2017 when he was almost 4 months old. She fostered him until March 9th of 2018. She fostered Orson when he was 11 days old. She fostered him also until March 9th. So I didn't realize that. I didn't realize they were with a different person. I was thinking that they were with Trezell and Jacqueline. Interesting. Orrin was named Sincere Pettis, and Orson was named Classic Pettis. At the time she fostered them, she said Orrin was a happy little baby when she first got him, and he finished therapy for an injury to his leg. Sanders said she fostered Orrin a little over a year. There were 4 other children in the home. They were family. My children were accepting of him. The children loved him, Sanders said. He needed a little more care because of his injury, but I immediately bonded to him. Orrin went to Harvey Hall School and learned ABCs, colors, shapes, she said. Asked if she ever separated Orrin from the other children, she said never. Sanders said she also cared for Orson for about a year. He was the baby. Sanders is teary-eyed as she talks, and her voice is trembling at times when she's testifying. Orson went to Harvey Hall for about 4 to 5 months. How close was she to him? She said, I was his mother. She said, I have thousands of pictures of them. Every picture that you see out there is from me. Ugh. CPS came to Sanders' home after her eldest daughter went to school with a scrape on her leg, and somehow her husband became accused of kicking her. She said she raised her voice to the CPS worker, and Orrin and Orson were later removed. I fought the county to have them returned to me until the day they were adopted out. Everything alleged about the girl being kicked was unsubstantiated. Before that incident, the process of adopting the boys was about to begin. So she was going to adopt them. Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. Sanders said she received a phone call on the morning of December 22nd, 2020, from the biological mother telling her the boys had been reported missing. We had 1,000 questions and we didn't know what to do. She said, I was pissed off. She went to Cal City, knocked on the West door, and asked them what happened. What the West told her didn't hold any weight, she said. They told her they were sorry and didn't know what happened. Sanders said she left after the West did an interview. Sanders says she was attached to them. I needed them more than they needed me. She'd grown so close to the boys that she was also close to their biological mother. They were like family. When Alexis Torres Stallings got up there, she began cross-examination. They started discussing the incident with her daughter, and the school made a referral to CPS. It had nothing to do with the other children in her home, only her daughter. Only her foster children were removed at the time. Her 6-year-old daughter, the one with the scrape, was allowed to stay. How ironic is that, guys? She said the CPS worker was responsible for that. Had the kids removed 3 hours after the oh my gosh, she said that had the kids removed 3 hours after going to her home. Wow. Sanders said the CPS worker thought she was overwhelmed with having 6 kids and taking the 3 foster children would decrease her stress. A Bakersfield Police Department officer was there while CPS was there. She was never charged with a crime. Asked if she had other issues with CPS, Sanders said nothing to that extent. Anyone can make a CPS referral, Sanders said. They can be a complete stranger and ask you to be investigated. That's kind of scary, huh? Torres Stallings asked if children can make a ridiculous statement that can lead to trouble with CPS, and Sanders agreed that that was true. Then they took a break and they called up John Ryan. He's a Bakersfield police officer. Oh, they're getting into Bakersfield. Okay. He's their liaison with the FBI, working hand in hand with both agencies. He's been a detective for almost 3 years. On December 22nd, 2020, he went to the California City home regarding Orrin and Orson. He went to Aspen Avenue, where the boys' home is located, and was there for about an hour. He canvassed the area, knocked on doors, and tried to turn up leads. Ryan said he eventually worked with Officer Brian Hansen from the Cal City Police Department. He was present when the Wests were interviewed at the police department. Ryan said he asked questions during the interview. He said he tried to build rapport with Trezell by asking basic questions about his childhood, schooling, where he worked, etc. He wanted to get a baseline as how Trezell communicated with him. With Jacqueline West, Ryan said he took over the interview asking questions to get her side of the story and details from when the boys were reported missing. They showed a video of his interview with Jacqueline West, and he identified the other officers in the room, including an FBI agent. In the video, Jacqueline is sitting in the interview room with her head in her hands. An officer enters the room, and the FBI agent begins asking questions, and Jacqueline starts giving the ages and the names of the children. The interview appears to be about an hour and 7 minutes long. The agents asked her to walk him through the night the boys were reported missing. She says Trezell was gathering wood and came inside. Then they couldn't find the boys. She says she was wrapping gifts at the time. It was around 5 p.m. when the kids were playing outside. She said they were playing for about 15 minutes before Trezell came inside. Trezell had been gathering wood for a fire and fireplace. Scratch that because I've already said it. She says they first started looking for the boys in the bedrooms, then cabinets, and the garage, and the back and front yard. John Ryan then enters the interview room and asks to speak with Cal City police officer, and the two of them then leave the room, and the FBI agent continues to question her. Jacqueline says that the kids are stubborn and give a little chuckle. The FBI agent asks about favorite toys, TV shows. Jacqueline speaks very quietly in the interview. It's hard to make out some of her responses. Shocker. The boys are never let out in the front yard because there's no fence, Jacqueline said. The backyard is completely fenced in. Jacqueline West says the side gate in the backyard had been open because her husband was gathering wood. Now she's saying that's why the gate was open because he was gathering wood. But when the police got there, they said yesterday that when the police were there looking around, this was from the Cal City police, that gate was closed. But, they could have closed it. The other officer and Ryan came back into the room. An officer says she's not under arrest and is free to leave at any time she wants. Ryan then begins asking questions. Jacqueline says the boys were adopted in April of 2019. She says she and her husband have fostered and adopted children before. Jacqueline West says all four of her adopted children were adopted on the same day. She tells Detective Ryan she also has two biological children. They're the oldest of her six. Jacqueline says her mother got her into the foster care, and she said that Jacqueline says that she moved around a lot, but she's originally from LA. She wanted to get away from everybody. She says of moving to Cal City, she heard an ad about Cal City being a good place to live to start your own business. They also didn't want contact with the boys' biological family. Life was great when they moved to Cal City in September 2020, she said. Her husband was working on his music. She says they get $1,000 a month for each of their four adopted children. The children are homeschooled. Then she cooks and cleans. She's always busy. Jacqueline says the other four children were dropped off at their grandmother's on Saturday. All the kids were with them when the four were dropped off, according to her interview. We don't ever really leave them, she said. And she was speaking of Orrin and Orson. She said the grandmother hasn't seen the two youngest for a while. The grandmother they're speaking of is Trezell's mother. As her mother says, Jacqueline said her mother was not really involved with the kids. Jacqueline says she doesn't really talk to her brother, and her sister lives in Oregon. Jacqueline West says she didn't call her mother the night the boys went missing because she wouldn't be able to do anything and she didn't want to stress her out. Her mother sometimes video chats with the children, but not often, she said. After dropping the 4 children off, they stopped at a gas station and went back to Cal City. Then she's attempting to explain which gas station they went to, but she says not exactly sure which one. Then she says they went to McDonald's and they had paid cash. Jacqueline says on Sunday they did the same thing they do almost every day. For her, it appears to be a lot of cooking and cleaning and hanging out. She says she talked to her sister that day. On Monday, she got up and started making coffee. She fed the pets, started washing, made breakfast. She says her other children had called from Grandma's house but didn't talk with or Orson. She says those two don't like talking on the phone. At midday, she sketched, Jacqueline said. The kids were playing in the playroom. According to her interview, she says they don't take naps. That's odd that children don't take naps. But don't most children take naps? Do you want to see them? Do you want to get your kids back? Detective Ryan asked as he prods Jacqueline to provide more details about what happened the night they were reported missing, and she replies in the affirmative, but is speaking very calmly. Jacqueline talks about searching for the boys, the areas she and Trezell went. I don't know, she says when asked where she thinks they went. They don't go anywhere. The boys can't get through the fence when it's locked, but she says Trezell had left it open. Jacqueline, the boys went out the gate. Ryan is pressing her on how long she searched where she went, if she spoke with neighbors. Jacqueline says she looked everywhere in the house for the children and where they could be. She says after police arrived, she and Trezell were told to stay in the house. She says she thinks someone has the boys in a house nearby. And then the DA paused the video and they took a recess. And then Ryan asked Jacqueline what she'll say to her other kids, and she says she'll tell them Orrin and Orson are missing. Remember, this is a video that they're playing. Ryan asked her to explain why her 4 other children say they haven't seen Orrin or Orson for months. Ryan says even her 10-year-old son says they haven't seen the boys in months. Jacqueline says she doesn't know why they would say months. Maybe something was misinterpreted. She says they see each other every day. Jacqueline says she has spanked her kids in the past for misbehaving, but she doesn't like to do that. Usually, discipline involves withholding a sweet snack or Trezell giving them a tongue lashing, she says. Ryan says the kids are telling authorities differently. He says he's not going to tell her what the kids said, though. And then he says to her, "You're showing no emotion. You haven't even shed a tear." He raises his voice at her, and she says he wants answers because it's freezing cold outside and the boys are probably starving. He says he thinks there's more to this incident. Jacqueline says her kids would lie, but she doesn't know why. I don't know why they would say that. She says of them saying they haven't seen Orrin or Orson for months. She says they don't get along. Jacqueline says it sounds bad, and then Ryan comes back and says, yeah, it sounds really bad. Are you trying to hide something for your husband? No. He asked if an incident happened and they panicked and did something to the babies. He says it sounds like they made up an alibi because Christmas was coming and people would find out. Ryan had pressed her for the true story, saying they will find out eventually. Jacqueline says she's not lying and gives them permission to search the house and the van. Ryan says 4 children aren't going to lie and separately give the same story. Very good point. Jacqueline blames the pandemic for people not seeing the 2 youngest. Ryan doesn't buy it. Says he has kids too, and you just can't keep 6 kids locked up in a home to the point where no one sees them. Doesn't it look weird to you? Ryan asks. He tells her what she's saying doesn't make sense. An officer says other family members have been crying, but neither she nor Trezell have shed a tear. Ryan tells her not to fake cry in front of them. You should feel guilty because something happened to these babies. Ryan says each of her other 4 children gave them the same story. They haven't seen the boys in months. Jacqueline says she's feeling regret for calling the authorities because now she and Trezell are being blamed. Ryan gets up and leaves the interview room, and another officer keeps questioning her. And Jacqueline maintains that she's telling the truth. The officer tells her they've checked everything. They weren't at the house. He tells her she and Trezell had a good plan, but there are always holes authorities will find. She says she knows how it looks, but it's not what happened. Jacqueline says her other children are little kids who will say anything. The FBI agent tells her that This is her chance to tell the truth. He says, "What she's told them is not adding up. I don't think you care about those 2 kids." Ooh, they were getting in on her. He asks her why she won't show emotion. Jacqueline says she can't, not in front of them. So then Ryan's coming back in the room and asked if she adopted the children for money. Get her, Ryan. I like this. Ryan says he believes she's sticking up for her husband because of something he did. Jacqueline says she's not hiding anything. You know something bad happened. He keeps telling her to come clean and tell them what happened or go to jail. Jacqueline says the boys were in the backyard. It is slim, Ryan says, of the odds of a random person taking the children. None of the evidence supports what she's telling them. So everybody in your family is lying except for you and your husband? Jacqueline says she doesn't know what they're saying. Ryan asks if her 2 oldest children were lying to a police officer. She says they have lied before. And then she says again, "It looks bad, it does." And Ryan says she's the key to finding the children. "I don't believe you're telling me everything." Ryan says 2 babies are missing and they have no clue, and what she has said is not making any sense. But you know what we truly believe? We believe you have answers to the questions. So then they pause the video, and that was it for the whole entire day. So I like this Ryan guy. He's really getting in on her. I like this a lot. So hopefully we'll get some more answers. That interview with her mother, they spent a long time on that, and it was so frustrating going back and forth. And now I'm looking back to see if I missed anything. So I'm looking at some other news people's tweets. It doesn't look like I missed anything. It looks like they're kind of as confused as I am about some of these things. There was a whole lack of understanding there as to she'd say yes on one side, and then on another side, she'd say no. So, all right. So that's it for today. It sounds short, but tomorrow we're going to pick back up, and hopefully Ryan is going to come back with some more damning evidence. But you know what's going to happen tomorrow is you're going to have Ryan be crossed by the defense. So that should be very interesting. Thanks for watching, you guys. Stay with us and have a blessed evening.